this morning with the Taking Care of Business Financial Aid and Business Office presentation. My name is Scott Meyer. I'm an Assistant Director in the Financial Aid Office here at the University of St. Thomas. I'd like to welcome you to orientation registration for 2012. We have about a 40-minute presentation this morning, now actually about 30 minutes. We are going to try to leave some time at the end for your questions and concerns. I'd like to also introduce Dan Gallivan off to my right. Dan is in the business office. He's the accounts advisor in the business office. He'll be talking, kind of working through the business office part of the presentation. I'm going to get us started off with some financial aid and some just kind of general things that we want you as parents to be aware of. So without ado, let's take it away. One of the first things we like to talk about with students and with parents is just reiterating and emphasizing some of the ways that we communicate with students once they're here on campus. Essentially, aside from a few reminders that we send home around the holidays and into next spring for students who are continuing on and coming back as sophomores, juniors, and seniors, we communicate with students primarily via email. All students, as you probably are aware, are assigned a St. Thomas email account when they first enroll here at the university. That will be the primary means of communication that we use for students. Students have the option of taking email from their St. Thomas account and having it forwarded to a Google account or a Hotmail account or a Gmail account or a whatever email account. Your students, your sons and daughters are welcome to do that. The one caution we always kind of throw out there, however, is that sometimes those email providers, especially when we send emails out en masse, in other words, it's a general reminder that we're sending out to all undergraduate students. If a lot of students are set up with Gmail, for example, all of a sudden Gmail sees a whole big bunch of emails coming from us and they think it's spam and they block them. And the email is still in their St. Thomas account, but they may not be getting it in their forwarded email account. So it's just something to kind of be aware of. But we do communicate with students exclusively via email, from really starting with the beginning of the school year. We always encourage students, if they get something from us or from the business office, for example, and they're not sure, the email always allows students to kind of respond back to the individual financial aid counselor. I would encourage you as parents to tell your sons and daughters that if they get something from us, they don't know what to do with it. If it seems like a call to action, but they're not sure what we're asking about, they can either feel free to contact us or at the very least, forward it on to you so that you can contact our office or the business office, and we'll be happy to help you out with that. So. The Outlook student email account, very important. We do, like I said, we do occasionally also still send things home, mostly reminders from the financial aid office. You may also get some things from the other offices here on campus. Students are also assigned a campus mailbox. That facility is still in the lower level of the Murray Herrick building. So students actually do have a physical on-campus mailbox if you want to send them care packages, Valentine's Day, holiday cards, that type of thing. Students can actually receive mail here on campus, and they're assigned a mailbox. The other way that we always want to make sure students understand that we communicate with is that the university actually has an email bulletin that we send out on a daily basis. That email goes out to students, faculty, staff, alumni, and it's a daily, it goes out Monday through Friday during the regular part of the school year. Again, I know from our office's perspective, from the financial aid office, we will oftentimes send students an email about a reminder of something they need to be aware of, and then we also try to publish that information in the bulletin today. We want to make sure that we're covering our bases as best possible. But that is considered an official form of communication for students. One of the things we just want to kind of quickly go over this morning is just talk about a few of the financial aid tools that are available. We don't have a lot of time to talk about scholarships and awards and loans and all that type of thing, but we're going to just touch on a few things that we hope you'll find useful at this stage of the summer. One of the first things is that the university actually has a cost or the financial aid office has a cost estimator that you can use to help determine the amount of additional funds that you might need. The cost estimator allows you or your sons and daughters to basically input the number of credits that they're going to be taking on a per semester basis. Dan is inputting some numbers that you can kind of see. Our example uses 16 credits per semester. You'll be able, if students are taking business classes where there's a small additional tuition charge, they can plug in the number of courses within the semester. If they're taking if they have classes where there's a science lab, they can input the number of labs that they're in. And then going down a little bit, they can input their residence hall. If they're in a double or a single or a triple, they can put that information in, and then they can also input their meal plan. And that will actually give you and the student the total direct charges that are going to be assessed over the course of the school year. Then we also have a way for students to input other things, other expenses that you might want to take into account, things like books and supplies, different St. Thomas expenses, health insurance costs, that type of thing. And then down below, you can also enter in the financial aid resources so that you can come up with an actual net figure that you're going to need. In this particular example, we're going to assume that the student maybe is going to have $1,000 of income over the course of the year. Most freshmen have at least $5,500 in federal student loans if they've done the FAFSA, so we're inputting that. We're going to assume a $13,000 scholarship, and we're going to assume that maybe there's a contribution from savings of approximately $4,000. That comes up with an estimated amount to finance for the school year of the $19,474. And again, it kind of everything gets broken out per semester, and then over to the right, it comes up with a whole year cost. So, real nice tool. We encourage students and families to go out and use this. We're happy to work with families in our office and students to come up with these figures also, but this is a good way for you to go out and get a good handle on what it is exactly you're going to need for the coming school year. Where did we go here? Here we go. In terms of some additional funding options, we always want to talk a little bit about, for those of you that have 529 plans, the pre-tax savings, education savings, if you've set those up for your sons or daughters, it's really, it's going to be up to you, the custodian of that plan, to request a distribution from the savings entity, from the plan. Those distributions come directly from there. The funds come directly here to the school. They pay against the student's account. And it's entirely up to you to decide how those are distributed. So I would encourage you to, if you haven't done so already, to look into, if you have a 529 plan, to look into what you're going to need to do, or documentation they may need to initiate that distribution of funds for your son or daughter's costs. The payments, like I said, are made here directly to St. Thomas. Again, also, we just talked very briefly that there are, if you are planning on personal savings and that kind of thing, or using a home equity line of credit, this is maybe a good time to make sure that you've got those things in order and are ready to go for the coming school year. In terms of additional financing options, different student loan options, for students who have completed the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, there is an additional loan option that's available to you as parents. It's called the Federal Direct Parent Plus Loan. Plus, in itself, is an acronym. It stands for Parent Loan for Undergraduate Students. It's really a loan that you as parents would be taking out to help cover your son or daughter's expenses. So you're actually the borrower. Your son or daughter is not the borrower for that type of loan. It's actually, the loan is actually your responsibility. The Federal Direct Loan Program allows you to borrow up to the cost of attendance. In other words, we have a figure each year that we publish as our cost of attendance, which is $46,550 for the coming school year. We take that figure, we subtract out your son or daughter's existing financial aid, their scholarships and loans and work study, and the difference between the two is the maximum amount that you can borrow from that program. In other words, you can basically borrow whatever it is you need to cover the remaining expenses. It does require that the student first complete the free application for federal student aid, so they have to have a FAFSA on file. They don't necessarily have to qualify for need-based assistance. They just have to have a FAFSA on file for you to do the PLUS loan. The Plus has been a popular financing option for our parents over the last few years. It's a relatively easy loan to qualify for in terms of the credit criteria that are used. It offers a fixed interest rate. Unfortunately, it's not a real low interest rate, but it is nevertheless a fixed interest rate. And for long-term planning, that may be an attractive option for you. The loans are normally set up to go into repayment 60 days after they've been fully dispersed. I'll translate that for you. The way most loans are set up, the loans come in half in the fall, the other half in the spring to pay for the spring semester, and it's usually after that spring semester that the loans normally go into repayment. You do, however, have the option of deferring those loan payments until after your son or daughters graduate. You don't have to qualify for that extra loan deferment. You just have to contact the Federal Direct Loan Program and actually ask for that, so a relatively easy option. Also, for those of you that are considering having your sons or daughters borrow from different private education loan programs, those type of loans, there's a wide variety of them that are out in the marketplace. There wouldn't be enough time in the day to talk about all those individual options. What I would tell you that in general is that it doesn't really matter to us who you or your son or daughter choose to borrow from in terms of those extra private loan programs. Those private loans are generally, they're creditworthy loans, which means they are going to require a creditworthy cosigner. As an institution, we are not allowed to have a specific lender or a certain lender that you have to work with. You are allowed to use whoever it is that you want in that process. We have, on our website, we have a link to a product that's called Fast Choice, which is maintained by a third-party vendor that the university works with, Great Lakes Higher Education Services. They have actually compiled a listing of private loan options. This is kind of a neat website because you can actually go out and look at some of the different loan programs that are out there. Again, however, this is not an exhaustive list of lenders. If you belong to a credit union or your bank or lending institution has a private loan program that you want to utilize, you're certainly welcome to do that. This is really just an example of some of the different loan programs that are out there. You can actually click and choose. You can compare up to 3 loan programs at a time. It's kind of nice. It gives you really the full details of the loan in terms of interest rates and how it's calculated, the repayment terms, that type of thing. So pretty neat feature functionality. And again, we have a link to this right directly from our website, so it is fairly handy for you to use. Just a reminder about these other private education loan programs is that your son or daughter is actually, in these type of loan programs, is considered the borrower for the loan. Anymore, they are going to need some type of a creditworthy cosigner to secure those loans. The cosigner for these loans can be, but does not have to be, you as parents. It can really be anybody who's able and willing to cosign the loan for your son or daughter. The assumption normally is that you as parents will be doing the co-signing for those loans, but just so you understand, if there's a grandparent who is willing to do that, or an aunt and uncle, or an older sibling, those are all perfectly fine options in terms of co-signer. Most of the private loan programs are variable interest rate loans. However, a lot of the lenders are now also offering fixed interest rate options. Variable rate loans, of course, are what they are right now. They look fairly attractive, but again, when you're looking at long-term planning, you need to be aware that those interest rates can start going up, and nobody really has a loan program where there's a cap on those rates. They can go as high as they need to go at whatever point down the road. Most of the loans are set up to kind of mirror the federal loan programs in that they have a 6-month grace period, and you normally have a 10 to 12, anywhere from 10 to 15 year time period to repay those loans. In terms of just timeline, if you are considering doing a private loan option, where you're going through a bank or lending institution, we do recommend that you have those loan applications completed by the end of July and early August. Those loans do need about a 3 to 4 week total time to be processed. So it does take a little bit of time to work through that process. So we do ask that families and students get that underway very shortly now. The Federal Plus Loan Program, that loan program does not require nearly as much time to process. So if you're thinking about that option, you do have a little bit of additional time to consider whether or not you want to do that. The Federal Parent Loan Program, actually the Plus Loan that we talked about earlier, the application for that is available from our office. We have a link to it on our on our financial aid website. That application gets completed and then returned to our office. So we actually do the initial processing for those type of loans. We do ask that, again, and it's not a requirement, but we certainly encourage students and families to plan ahead, use the cost estimator tool that we have, or come in and meet with us and determine right up front what it is you're going to need if you're going to be doing the extra borrowing from these type of loan programs. It's helpful for you, and it's good planning if you've got all of those set up ahead of time and you're not coming up way short into the second semester or something like that. So we do encourage families to and students to kind of look at what their total costs are going to be and try to just do one loan application. Just makes things go a lot smoother. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he's going to talk with you a little bit about the billing process and other matters with the business office. Dan?
All right, welcome everyone. Scott said I'm Dan Galvin. I work in the business office and oversee the accounts receivable, which your student's account are going to be part of that. And I want to talk about how we do things here. We use an e-bill system to notify students and authorized users, which would be parents, relatives, spouses, etc., that there's a bill out there, there's activity on the account. We don't send any paper notices. The only paper notice that our office generates is a past due notice. We don't want to get into that scenario. So we do send out the e-bill on or about the 22nd, 23rd, 24th of the month, depending on whether there's a holiday or something like that, weekend. A minimum payment is due, and I'll talk about the recommended payment plan that we have for this. We generally want to bill out. We start in August, and we're going to run it through the course of the year, and we try to work with families in that time frame. But we recommend clearing each semester charges in turn. We don't want to have you carrying things over if we can avoid it, because that just burdens the student with additional concerns, the family with additional concerns. But we'll talk about that in a minute. The bullet point about authorized users, I know you heard from the academics department about FERPA, about the privacy laws that protect the student. They are adults, they're 18. It's a scary time for a lot of parents. I know I've heard a bunch say that, but it's also a big step for them to take responsibility for the account. They're signing a payment agreement form that they agree to pay by the terms and conditions that we're going to talk about. And they also have a bunch of rights underneath that the university has to provide for them too. But they can designate you an authorized user. Most of our students are not footing the bill for this education on their own, and they are going to need some help and some advice and guidance. So once they log into the e-bill and e-pay system, which is in Murphy Online, it's the hub for everything they do here at St. Thomas, they'll be able to designate you an authorized user. Now, if they want mom and dad and grandma to be on there, each person in turn, they'll enter an email address and submit. And we'll know then, once you log in and set up your password, you're going to have your own portal access. You'll have full access to the account, pay online, print off 1098-T tax documents. All that stuff is there for you. But they have to give you permission first. As weird as that sounds, I'm terrified. I have a 5- and 7-year-old, and I can only imagine when they have that kind of power. But at any rate, we'll get into the whole power you have with the checkbooks later on. But just make sure they do that. We can't talk to you otherwise. We don't want to be difficult. We're not trying to poo-poo the idea that you're paying for this, but they have to let us know that you can do it. There's also a paper form online for those that don't do email. I have some parents that are not, web is not part of their life. And we do have a paper form on the business office website where they can designate authorized users as well. So once you're in there, both you and your student are going to see, when you log into the e-bill and e-pay system, you'll be able to see all the options you have. You can view, make a payment, and it's all laid out there. It's essentially a one-stop shop for all billing purposes, tax documents, etc. We have some options. I'll talk about the payment options you have in just a moment. There's tutorials on the business office website, so you can look at those. It just goes through a short mock-up of what it would look like to you when you get in there. As always with anything at this school, we want to help you and your students succeed and understand anything. If you ever have a question, concern, anything else, as Scott said, call, shoot an email, have your students stop in, come by the office. We live for it. We're here for you. And we pride ourselves here at St. Thomas on providing that personal touch, so take advantage of it. Same thing with this stuff. If you see the tutorial and go, what was that little bald guy talking about up there? Call me, call our office. We'll be happy to talk to you and explain it. Now the payment plan I talked about, this is essentially it. About August 22nd, the first e-bill notification will go out and all the fall charges will be on there. It's a static document. I want to note that right away. We do it each month. We update all of our aging for that month, all charges, credits, etc. So when you look at that, any activity that occurred just prior to the date that we issue it is not going to be reflected, so don't panic if you see that. We also are not going to have deducted the federal student loans or any pending loans you have from that first bill. They're going to be on there as pending financial aid, but we can't reflect actual activity that hasn't taken place, and we don't disperse the loans until we absolutely have to pay the bill before the 19th of September, the first due date. We don't want any additional interest to accrue on any unsubsidized type of loan. So that's why we do that. We hold that money until that last minute. Again, if you get confused and you look at that first bill and think, why isn't the aid applied? What's going on? I can't remember what that guy said up front. Call us. We're happy to explain it to you. But you can see how we want to have it paid down. About 25% of the total outstanding balance each month of the semester. If you run into a problem, something comes up, car repair, health bill, I mean, all kinds of things happen. Lightning hits your house, starts on fire. Any of that type of thing, call us, let us know if there's going to be an issue making a payment. It's important to note that we do have a 1.1% finance charge that we charge each month against whatever you leave open. If you choose to carry that credit line, that's fine. You can do that, but there will be a 1.1% finance charge assessed on that dollar amount. So if you don't want to deal with that at all, just pay the balance in full by the 19th of September. There will be no finance charge assessed. As you go forward throughout the semester, if your student ends up with a medical bill, I think the best example is, say they go and put express card money on, and we'll talk about that, and they go to Chipotle and they get food poisoning, go to the food service or go to the health services to get taken care of, you might see charges pop up. This e-bill notification will let you know something happened. There's activity. And again, don't panic. It could be something simple like that. It could be the student decided to add a class or drop a class, and suddenly you have a credit balance. We'll talk about how to get refunded your money. But pay attention to the e-bill notifications as they come out. Any charge that hits the student account, if they do something on September 21st, before the new e-bill goes out, it's going to be on that new e-bill billed for the next month. There wouldn't be a finance charge assessed against it. So like a credit card, new charges will hit the account, but we're not going to immediately slap a charge on just because a due date passed. It's got to be caught by that billing cycle, and you will know about it beforehand. So your students shouldn't catch you off guard with anything they're doing that way. Now, for the credit balances, there's a number of ways that students can get refunds. You may be thinking, my student's not going to get a refund. I've got to pay quite a bit out of pocket for this. That doesn't matter. There can be different circumstances that will lead to a credit balance, such as dropping a class after you've made a payment, making a change in something, whatever it might be, getting a refund on their express card. They're suddenly going to have money owed to them. We really have gotten away from paper checks because we're not timely. We don't get it to the students fast enough and the parents. So we really want to have them go in. The system's secure. When you go into Murphy Online, it's PCI compliant, like any other banking institution, anything like that. You're authenticating as an authorized user, your student's authenticating as themselves when they enter their password. And so the window's secure, all the personal information's in there. The banking stuff, same thing. If you want to enter in banking information, there's a way to do it for making payments and for getting the refunds. And so it's right in the e-bill and e-pay system under the Profiles tab. You can get a refund profile set up. That way, when refunds are due to go out, it's the same day it hits the bank account. We get your money back to you as fast as possible. If we do a check run, which occasionally we do have to do that, it can be up to 3 weeks depending on when we get the check run started, because we only do checks once a week now. So if we miss one, it takes a while, then we got to mail it. Hopefully don't get returned mail. So just to let you know, that's how we want to do it. Some of the PLUS loan funds might have to be done via paper check in rare instances, depending on how the money is applied, but that's determined by federal regulations, and I won't bore you with all that stuff. So just to let you know, have your student go in and set up an e-refund profile when they're doing the authorized user. It's simple, it's easy, they get their money back quick. You cannot set up the e-refund profile. Important distinction there about being an authorized user to view things versus actually be able to get a refund from your student. Your student could enter your bank account information. I've had a number of parents say, they're going to enter my bank account information because I'm paying for it. Any refunds are coming back to mom or dad, and that's fine, but the student has to do that. So students are drivers in a lot of things here. And again, I know it's kind of unnerving in some ways, but It's part of the process of what we're hoping to do here at this university is prepare them not just academically, but also help mature in this kind of stuff, finance and all the scary stuff that, I mean, I didn't really pay attention to when I was 18 years old either, so. We like cash, so if you want to pay with cash, that's great. We'll take it. Checks, we do accept those in the mail. You don't have to pay online. We have it there as a convenience, but it is there. You can do a free payment using your checking account or savings account data, not credit card or debit card. If you get into the credit card business, we don't accept Visa. That's just an issue. I won't bore you with that, all the technicalities why we can't. But MasterCard, Discover, and American Express are there, but the server that we use, the vendor, they make their money by charging you 2.75% of whatever the transaction is. And so that's borne by you as a consumer, and so I don't recommend that. I don't know many mileage plans or bonus points plans that are going to recoup that expense. But the free e-payment is there, so it's easy, it can be done right away, and it hits the account immediately. So we like that too if there's a hold on an account, and I'll talk about how that can happen. We can get that lifted right away because we can see it. But mail is fine, have the student drop off a check. Now, as I mentioned, the hold situation, if we ever have a scenario where life happens, we know it does, please don't panic. Tell your students not to panic. Contact our office. We'll start talking about what's occurred, what resources do we have at St. Thomas or outside of school that we can use, or what can we do as an office to be flexible to work around. Like I said, that recommended payment plan. Do we need to stretch it out a little bit? Do we need to, we are flexible, that way we try to do the best we can to assist you because we know things happen, they come up. The hold is going to probably generate the most interest from the student because they're not going to be able to do their records and they're not going to be able to do anything registration or drop ad type. Those functions will be frozen because we don't want the account, anything else to happen in the account, any new charges especially to go on if we already know there's a problem. So contact our office. We'll start looking at what's the best solution, how do we optimize our approach to it to make sure the student and the family can get over that hump and keep moving forward and minimize that stress. So Bill Peterson, I have noted there, he's our credit manager, and he's available, I'm available, and Bill's in the back of the room. Bill, if you want to stand up and wave, just, there's a test, you got to pick him out of a lineup later on, but don't worry about it. But anyways, that's my speech about how we do things here at St. Thomas, and now we want to open it up to questions that you might have. Ma'am?
To what extent are kids hearing all of this?
I gave this presentation to our student leaders.
I'm going to repeat the question so they can.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
We learned the other day that people in the back can't hear. The question was, to what extent are students being made aware of these policies and rules and type of things we have in terms of their student rights and that type of thing? Dan? Yeah,
and I spoke to the student leaders that they're with right now and showed them this presentation and emphasized those key points of interest that we want them to take away from it. That A, it's your account, don't ignore the e-bills, and anything that comes from either of these offices. B, get your parents set as an authorized user if they're going to be helping you, which almost everyone is. And then also make sure you get an e-refund profile set up so if we owe you any money, you get it back fast, and that usually gets eyebrows up. So they are hearing that. They don't get it from me, though. I don't give that speech. So, but it is going to be important to have that conversation with them. Okay. There was another question up front. Did I miss? Ma'am?
Scholarship monies, is that just half first semester, half second semester? Is that what it was?
The question was, is how are scholarship funds applied against student building accounts? And that's correct. The scholarships are split. They're applied half for the fall semester and half for the spring semester because, as Dan pointed out earlier, the university actually bills on a per semester basis. So we bill separately for the fall semester and then bill separately again for the spring semester. And those scholarships and St. Thomas, in fact, really all the financial aid, those are all applied on a per semester basis.
Can you explain how work study works?
Okay, the question is, how does work study work?
How does work study work? Work study, we didn't really touch on that, but I can go over it very quickly with you. Essentially, the way work study functions here at St. Thomas, students are responsible for finding their own job on campus. And again, I believe they're getting that information through the various orientation sessions today. Students, essentially, they're responsible for finding a job. Our human resources department here at St. Thomas actually they handle all of the job postings. which they get from the various departments and facilities and offices here on campus. Students will go out, secure a student employment position. They have a choice in terms of how they get paid. Students can choose to get paid. They can choose, for example, to have their earnings applied directly against their tuition charges, so that's always an option for students. For students where, let's say you as a family have sat down and said, okay, here's the deal. We have, between your financial aid and our other resources, we've figured out how to pay your bill for the school year, but we're cutting you off. Don't call home asking for $20, 20 bucks, shows my age,
yeah.
$40 to go to the movies and get a couple sodas and go out to Devani's afterwards. Don't be calling home asking for that. If you want to do those things, you're going to have to get a job on campus. And in those situations where the student account is paid in full, they'll just get a regular paycheck every 2 weeks, just like Dan and I get paid every 2 weeks. So, so they actually choose how they want to get paid. If they want to have the funds applied against their tuition bill, outstanding balance, or if they just want to get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and they can have that paycheck deposited into a checking or savings account. Oh, yeah, good question. The follow-up question was, in terms of getting a paycheck versus having it applied against their tuition bill, can they split that? And the answer is yes. Students can actually say, you know what, I want half of my check to come to me, as a paycheck, and I want the other half to go to against my tuition bill. I believe that they get to choose a 25-75 split, a 50-50 split, or the other 75-25 split.
Yeah, they can choose. Okay, I'm being heralded, we're out of time. There'll be tables at the info fair. Financial aid on the business office will be available there for more questions. And this afternoon, there's a breakout session talking about the charges, how they impact the bill. The library will be represented, health services, and the card office about meal plans and the express cards. So you can fire away with questions there. We'll have time this afternoon. Thank you very much for coming, and look forward to talking to you today yet.